and I've got the dog walking around in the background. Everything's cool. Are we
Yeah.
live? Are we there? Did this
I'm
work?
looking at the YouTube right now. It's usually a couple
Unbelievable.
seconds behind, right?
I tell you, I had problems technically. Frank had some issues. And somehow, like 22 seconds ago, we all came
We
together.
got
I
it.
think can everybody hear us? I think we're live. Can everybody see us okay? Are we cool?
Gecko
Give us a thumbs
time. Wally, we got our fans and your fans clashing already.
All right, let's do it. Let's
All right. I couldn't name myself Geeky Gecko Creations. It was too long. So I named myself the Geeky Gecko Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the top of the screen. But I like this setup. It's nice. It looks pretty cool, professional and stuff.
I think this looks really, really good. Okay, we've got Jaden. Oh my gosh. This is like a scorecard here. And Frank,
I got the scorecard, man.
you know, the Dukes were down. The gloves were down the other day. We were ready to duke it out. I mean, some serious. Let's go, man. Let's go.
I'm getting
Holy
everything
God.
ready, bro.
I can't
I'm
get this.
getting it ready. I brought all of this just for the
I'm ready.
occasion.
Oh my God.
This is
See,
the intimidation factor.
That's how pro Frank is. I tell you, folks. I can give you.
Wait. Before we start, Wally, I have one more secret weapon, if I may.
I hate to even guess what this is. If he comes out in boxer shorts, I'm out of here. Well, there you go. I didn't bring any support. I'm just going to have to figure something out there.
Oh, no, you got some support.
Yeah, I've got both barrels loaded here, bud. So let's do it.
Hopefully I don't get pooped on. I'm just going to leave this guy on me here.
I think the last live show that I saw you on, I think you had just explosive diarrhea going. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be a challenge from both of us. You know, Frank had mentioned on one of his live streams, and if you guys don't catch Geeky Gecko Creations, their live stream, you've got to catch Frank because he gives out a ton of information. He's fun to listen to. It's just a blast to sit there and listen to his live streams. So one of his live streams, he mentioned that leopard geckos are the best pet gecko. Am I not mistaken? Is that what you said?
I think I said number one.
Number one. Okay, fans of Supreme Gecko, you know that I like leopard geckos, I like crested geckos, but it's obvious which one of these geckos is number one. It's crested geckos, right? Throw some comments down in those comments and support Crested Geckos because we need your support here. So this is going to be a challenge. We've got some topics kind of lined up for this whole presentation, and we want to hear from you. If we're right on, if we're missing anything, throw those comments down in the comments and let us know. And at the end, what I'd like to do is kind of go back and revisit and see which one you think, leopard gecko or crested gecko, which one is the number one pet in the hobby?
Wally, I knew that you would be a little biased, so that's why I brought the scorecard, so I can keep tallies of every category. I don't know if you want the fans to vote or if you and I have to cast a vote for each category, but I will put a check mark on each category. What wins?
Let's do both.
Okay.
I like a lot. And Frank, jump in here. We've got some semi-formal categories here. I tell you, man, I wrote these down, but I've been so busy I haven't even looked at this list all day long. So this is going to be kind of fresh, but
it's okay. I'm distracted by a gecko crawling on me that I don't want to fall on national interweb television.
I've got a crested. That's very, very cute, but I have a crested that jumps, which is, can go ahead and put a plus.
I have a crested that jumps.
So
okay, Wally, we got to do the superhero thing later, okay? If they had superhero powers, what would it be? And that will be its own category at the very end.
I like that. So let's start with the very first one. And I'm just going to throw these categories out, and let's start with you, Frank. The category is availability. And again, we're talking about a leopard gecko. We're talking about a gecko. Which one of those is more available? Which one, with the category of availability, wins out between a leopard gecko and a crested gecko? I'll let you go ahead and go first.
Okay, when I was first getting more heavily into reptiles in like 2000 and I don't know, maybe like 2010 through 2015, I would have thought the answer would have been the leopard gecko for sure. And when I came back into the hobby, when I came back into the hobby around 2015, I started noticing that crested geckos picked up a ton of momentum. And I was like, wow, it's challenging the leopard gecko. Like, I'm not an old guy, right, Wally? So I've only been around since like 2010 in the hobby to begin with, maybe 2005 to 2010. Around 2005 to 2010, there was so much momentum around leopard geckos. I was like, oh, this is it. This is number one for sure. I left the hobby for a while. I came back in like 2015, 2016, and crested geckos done took over. So availability, I actually have to say that when I go to a reptile show, more vendors are vending crested geckos than leopard geckos nowadays.
I have to agree with you. I've got some old guy stories for you, Frank, but I'll save those for a little bit later. But
how about seasoned? Is that the politically correct term?
Seasoned. Classic. Classic.
Classic.
So I've been doing this for 20 years, and when I got started, there were leopard geckos all over the place, and the carrot tails, the Max Snows were just starting. The Max Snows, oh my God, it's a black and white gecko. How cool is that? $2,000. Oh my gosh! But
wow,
there was a limited supply of the really high-end leopard geckos. But I tell you what, there were crested geckos starting to appear. 20 years ago, crested geckos were starting to appear. 10 years ago, when you were talking about, I think that crested geckos were moving up faster and faster to the point that some people were getting out of crested geckos because they felt like the market was being saturated too much. There were shows, I know there was a show in Racine where the show promoter actually goes around and says, okay, what are you bringing? And if there's too many crested gecko breeders at the show, he'll pull back. So I can relate to reptile shows and say that the last few shows that I've been to, there's been a table of leopards, a table of leopards, a table of leopards, a table of leopards, and then everybody else has either a ball python table or a crested gecko table. And I think that the show promoters around this area in Wisconsin and Illinois do a really, really good job of balancing, but I still feel like crested geckos are such a mainstay in these reptile shows. I also feel like you can go online to some Facebook groups and just get such information off of Facebook groups because there's so many people. I think that leopard geckos are really, really strong in the hobby as far as availability, but from an availability standpoint, I think that crested geckos has just that slight edge.
Can I throw one more other caveat into it?
Sure. Counterpoint, go ahead.
You're familiar with Morph Market. If anybody watching is unfamiliar with Morph Market, it's like the Craigslist, but for the reptile world. The thing I really like about Morph Market, it keeps track of so much data. So I just took a quick look to see how many crested geckos are listed on Morph Market. We have 1,590 crested geckos listed on Morph Market right now. Comparatively, for leopard geckos, so 1,500. Comparatively, for leopard geckos, 1,024. So I guess the market is speaking. We could ask the fans to see what their vote is, but I think I would even have to agree with you in this case. Availability, crested geckos are more available than leopards right now.
What a great call to go to Morph Market and just look at just sheer numbers. And that's surprising me a little bit because I actually would have thought if you would have given me 1,500.
I thought so too.
For the cresteds, I would have thought leopards a little bit farther down, but it kind of says, cresteds are here, but leopard geckos aren't that very far behind. So I think cresteds wins availability. Put it down. Put it down in your little sheet there.
All right, we're going to put it. Crested gecko is marked in blue. You're going to get a blue X. Okay, you got one category, Wally, but I mean, there's lots of categories, man. There's lots of categories.
I'm not going to get shut out, so that's cool. So we thought that another category would be, and we're trying to work our way forward from just general to the most very specific categories here. And we thought Frank, and came up with this great list here, but we thought size was a category that we want to kind of examine for both animals. Do you mind starting off on size as well on this one?
No, I don't. And here's my question too: does one animal have to win a category, or can both animals win a category?
Ooh, I like that. I think that both. I think we can certainly have a tie.
Okay. If we do a tie, we want to be positive. We'll give them each a check mark.
There you go. I like that.
So starting off with size, actually, there is something unique about leopard geckos that crested geckos doesn't offer. They're both about the same size. You're looking at somewhere between like 30 to 60 grams, but and about the size of your palm, which is great. Sits in your hand, could watch TV with you, could sit on your shirt. But leopard geckos do have a super giant form that comes in about 110 to 150 gram range, which can be pushing 10 to 12 inches. So size-wise, what's the question? Like, what is better size-wise or bigger?
Yeah.
Bigger or better?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, and that's a great point because of the giants. I think that pushes the leopard geckos forward. I also thought of babies as well, and if there's any differential there, and if there's any advantage to size there. And I really think that some crested gecko keepers, when they initially start off and they have babies, they're intimidated by the size of crested gecko babies. Whereas leopard gecko babies are, because they're a little bit bigger than a newborn crested gecko baby, I think that they're more, maybe not more handleable, but more manageable. So I think that the advantage goes to leopard geckos as well from a size standpoint, even from the small newborns and, like you had just mentioned, all the way up to the giants.
That's a great point about the babies. I didn't think about that, and that'll tie us into another topic, handleability. But yeah, babies' size is definitely. All right. Well, I'm glad. So no tie on this, Wally, because we got the giants and we got bigger babies. We take the category.
I think leopard geckos. Everybody comments. Leopard geckos. Did that win the category?
I'm marking it, guys. I'm marking it. It's too late, Wally. It's done. Let's see what the.
Okay. I'm not seeing the comments, so if anybody else can see the comments, go ahead, Frank. If you can see them, I'm not jumping over them. I'm trying to.
Yeah, they might be a couple behind, but I see that Mortal Slayer says size always matters. My leopard geckos will interact with me, unlike my crested geckos, and then people are mentioning the giant morph and the super giant morph. So people are commenting a little more on the size variation of the leopard gecko. So I think we're good to chalk it up for the win. Yeah. Bob says Leo. Jaden says Leo. Frank the Tank says we're cheating somehow. But
outstanding. So Frank the Tank doesn't want to admit failure here, so he's just saying it's rigged.
It's
rigged.
A done deal. It's rigged. Yep. But remember, guys,
okay.
We're keeping track of everything here. So as you can see, it's a tie right now. Categories: availability, crested; size, leopard.
This is a tough one. But I've got a little ace in the hole coming up here.
So
we're going to talk now about care, hardiness, and risk. Care, hardiness, and risk.
Is that all in one category?
That's all in one category. I lumped it all together. One big fat category. So care, care, hardiness, and risk. So I get this question, again, I have to relate to reptile shows. I get this question all the time at reptile shows, at least 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times at a reptile show. I can't decide between a leopard gecko and a crested gecko. I have leopard geckos on my table. I have crested geckos. It's no difference for me if I sell a leopard gecko or a crested gecko. In fact, this last show, I sold out of leopard geckos, and I started pointing to people to go to a couple of friends' tables to get some leopard geckos. I'm there to talk geckos. I tell you, at these reptile shows, I find it annoying that I have to do let me $100 minus $40. I like talking. I don't like selling. So I'm completely unbiased about this, except for the fact that I try to give the customer as much information as possible. So here's my spiel on crested geckos. Here it comes. Are you ready?
All right. Let's get it.
Okay. No special requirements. No special lighting. No special heat. no live. You knew this was coming.
I
No
knew
live,
it. I knew it.
no live foods. It couldn't be easier to keep these animals. And if you're comfortable in the middle of winter with your heat, if you're comfortable, they're going to be comfortable. If you're a little chilly and you're reaching for the sweater, they're probably a little chilly. You might want to have a little tiny light on top so that they can temperature regulate themselves. They eat the Crested Gecko diet. Powder, powder. Oh my gosh, I've got to go out in the middle of winter and get insects for my leopard gecko. Oh, this sucks. Diet. Mix it up with some water. Here you go. Here's your food. Now, I don't suggest feeding them the diet all the time. We feed the crickets once a week, but as a breeder, I want the healthiest, biggest, strongest superhero crested geckos that we can have. But from a care standpoint, I just don't see it getting any animal, any reptile, any beginner reptile that we're talking about. I don't see it getting any easier than a crested gecko. When we talk about hardiness and risk, I kind of lump those two together. Hardiness and risk. Years and years ago on the Rapashi program, he came out with the foods and everything. And he came out with a medication to help with a disease that crested geckos occasionally had. He carried that product for 2 years and it didn't sell because I tell you, there's just no real issues with crested geckos. Of course, if you keep them in a minimal kind of a situation, they're going to have some problems. But kept in a healthy situation, they're bulletproof. These crested geckos are bulletproof. So, from a care and hardiness and a risk standpoint, I don't think that there's a beginner reptile better than a crested gecko.
Man, you knocked me down with a couple of hits there, Wally. You knocked me to the ground. The ref is like, "Can you see?" I got up on like count 8. Okay, I got up on count 8, and I'm here to fight on count 8. I want to take a quick sec to look at the comments and see what people said about what you had to say about hardiness and stuff like that.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, leopard geckos can live so long. Once at my school, someone lost their leopard gecko, and the next year we found it. It survived all summer. Leopard geckos are better.
Wow.
That's a good one, actually. That brings up an interesting point. If a crested gecko and a leopard gecko got out, they live in 2 different temperature zones, so it's hard to compare. But Wally with the facts. Toilet Pete says Wally with the facts. Simply Betta. Oh, do you know who Simply Betta is?
Absolutely, Taylor. Hi. Thank you very much for joining
you know who?
us.
Oh, so you actually know her? I met her the other day through a live stream for the first time. Well, like over live stream.
How cool is that?
Yeah, she's got anyone who. Sorry, it looks like I'm lagging here a little bit. So
a little bit. Simply Betta has a wonderful, wonderful channel on YouTube. If you keep fish, go to Simply Betta and check her out. Subscribe.
Yeah, for sure.
All that stuff.
I never knew bettas came in so many different varieties. I saw one of her videos. There's like 20 different species, different sizes and stuff. It's just a collectability factor, right? Same thing with like leopard gecko or leopard geckos. Reptiles makes them so popular.
I related a little bit to some of the isopods that I keep with all these different colors and everything. So thank you very much for joining. What did Simply Betta have to say?
Simply Betta said thank you. She said hi, Geeky Gecko and Supreme Gecko. So definitely give her a shout out. Check out her channel if you like beta fish. She goes over how you can say it either way. But she's got some pretty cool setups that she can show you how to do it.
Cool.
So I have to judge the category now, right? Care, hardiness, and risk. To the points you were saying, I have one question, Wally, and maybe you can answer this as honestly as you can because I'm seriously curious about this question. And I don't say this to be mean, but what is the longest that you've ever observed a crested gecko without humidity and do okay? Maybe you've heard stories from other people because that's a big deciding factor for leopard gecko versus crested gecko. It's commonly supported that crested geckos need to be sprayed down daily if they're in dry environments or every couple of days, 2 to 3 days. So can you speak on that a little?
Yeah, I certainly can. And this kind of has a side topic to it as well. There's a little bit of controversy as far as the humidity, but also from a keeping water with crested geckos, keeping a water dish with crested geckos. Now, my crested geckos love their water dishes when I keep them in there because they go in there and they poop and they just absolutely
Yeah.
love being in the water dishes. So for whatever reason, years ago, I decided to pull the water dishes, and I missed every day, every other day, especially every other day, maybe even every third day in the summer. They have their humidity in their hide boxes. That helps them stay hydrated. They need something to drink, so we do go through and mist them every other day. It's like every other animal. I feel every other animal has to have some water, way more. And I bet you've said this to keepers as well. Keeping the water in there, keeping a source of water in there is way more important than feeding them. Very important to feed animals, but very important to have the water in there as well. So we'll mist every other day. I wouldn't suggest going past like 3 days. If you go past 3 days, your animals are going to start suffering.
Okay, I was just purely curious about that, and I kind of wanted to know. But yeah, I've noticed crested geckos not have any humidity issues for a few days and stuff, but we don't want to push that, obviously. So even considering the fact that you have to spray crested geckos every other day or so, you're right about not needing to go out and buy live feeders, deal with live feeders, and the care aspect. They don't need lighting, they don't need heat. And here's one other thing that I would like to mention about leopard geckos, and this is what I meant by risk when I brought it up with you. It's always a fire risk to some degree when you're working with animals that have lighting. And it might not be a high degree, but you do need to be aware that, hey, if this light falls, if a spark happens, if you rub that tub raw over the heat tape, there's chances for fire. It's happened in other people's collections, and you need to be aware of it. So I would vote crested geckos also safer and easier to care for.
My turn for a rebuttal, just really quick. All that I have to say about this category is that crested geckos don't need the live food. And to further that point, 2 words, cricket soup. If you've ever had crickets and forgot them under a rack or forgot them in the corner of your room for a week or so, cricket soup. Nothing.
And stinkiness, right?
Nothing worse. So, while we feed the crested geckos crickets, you really don't have, winter, if you can't get to a pet store to get crickets, it's not that huge of a deal.
Right.
I
look frozen, so I don't know if you can see me, but
you are
see
frozen.
The board in front of me? Okay.
I thought that you were just in shock that I had such a huge.
I'm in total shock. I was again on the ground for 5 seconds. I got up this time. Maybe I need to lower my resolution. I'm gonna put the check mark, Wally. 2 categories so far.
I needed that one.
You got it.
Okay. Anything else to add to that, Frank, as far as care, hardiness, or risk?
Let me just see. People in the chat are saying, yeah, crickets are very stinky. Good points made on both sides. My crested gecko no longer eats insects, and he doesn't like them anymore. Is this bad? You can answer that, Wally. Is it bad?
Whoever said that, I'm going to pull that offline, and whoever said that, message me, because I have a video that is titled appropriately from the Big Lebowski. Your crested gecko doesn't eat insects. I'm calling BS on that one. So
wait, is that Ron or who's that football player? Lukowski?
Oh, the Big Lebowski. It's a movie.
Oh, the Big Lebowski.
Yeah. So what I'm going to say is contact me if you want your animal to eat insects, which I think everybody really should if they can. Contact me and I'll talk through the whole process with you.
By the way, Wally, real quick, shameless plug. I heard a video of yours to say to give baby crested geckos mealworms. I did that almost daily or every other day while they've been growing up, and they are so much bigger than I would have expected. I've seen really good results so far.
Yes, and it seems so simple and so easy, but I think a lot of people, and like you said, the crested gecko keeper population exploded for years and years there. I think people just got used to, I'm just going to feed the diet and I don't have to feed anything else. But if you feed the proteins to your baby crested geckos, they just shoot up. So thanks for the shout out.
One comment. Frank the Tank says, Wally will eat your unwanted insects.
Wally won't eat your unwanted insects.
You
Wally
know,
will not. Even though
I'm
I've
a
been.
little embarrassed by this. I look in my refrigerator and I see those mealworms sitting in there at 50 degrees, and I'm like, that would go good in a burger or like a shake or something like that. Protein. I just feel like it's good for my body, but maybe I'm
As,
turning into a lizard now, Wally.
I'm trying to think of what lizard you're turning into when you're frozen like this. Probably
Yeah.
maybe some lizard just kind. Oh, it's a chameleon just kind of sitting there and
Oh,
watching.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob M says we need to make peanut butter beetles. Peanut butter beetles.
He's been watching my videos because I actually ate peanut butter beetles on one of my videos. My wife just came in. She said, "No, you didn't."
No,
So
you didn't.
yes, I
You
did.
tried.
Yes, I did eat it down.
So, Simply Beta says dubias are crunchy like chocolate covered peanuts.
Okay, stop watching Simply Better videos.
Stop watching. Oh man. Real quick, Nate the Great. Can someone help me figure out why my gecko stays in its cave all day? If it's a leopard gecko, that's because they love tight spaces. That's how they feel comfortable, even in the wild. That's actually good if they do that.
That's what they do. That's
What
their
they do.
job.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Oh,
So
Luna geckos. Oh no. Old guys rule. Uh-oh, I'm outnumbered now.
it's the
I'm
big G.
outnumbered.
Big
I
G
need
in
my
the
wife.
house.
I need my wife.
I feel like
So
that's
simply,
appropriate right now. Big
I
G
guess
in
Simply
the
Beta has
house.
eaten Big G's in the house. Simply Beta says she's going to describe superworms for us next. But what's the next category, Wally? I'm going to put it on the list here.
Let's do this. The next category is community. And real quick, Crystal wants to come over and say hi to everybody, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Hi.
You're not on screen. There you
How
go.
you doing, Crystal? Is that
This is our granddaughter,
your granddaughter? How you doing? Crystal, you said, right?
Crystal. Thanks for stopping
Crystal,
by.
if I look frozen, it's just because I've mastered the art of staying still.
You did not.
Oh, am I moving? I look frozen to me.
You are 100% frozen. That's okay.
Okay.
This is a great discussion. This is wonderful.
I'm
Liz
a
says,
chameleon.
okay, community. I'm going to let you go first on this because I don't specifically know what I have a guess at what community means, but go ahead and start us out on that, Frank.
This might be a tie. Let's see. So something I've noticed in the community, Wally, I was actually going to make another video on this topic specifically. Some communities are healthier than others. And one of the things I've noticed, not to bash any one specific community or not, but I've noticed that a lot of times on certain Facebook groups, you will get a lot of judgment from people. Quick judgment. People will come down on you for just asking a simple question and not even knowing the answer. So when I think of community, I'm thinking, where is there a healthy place to grow? And also size of the community. How much content is being put out by leopard gecko breeders versus crested gecko breeders? And I want to say it's a tie, but I need to hear your thoughts. You kind of give me your thoughts on it as an OG in this space.
I am going to use my old guy card here and say I go back way, way, way before even keeping reptiles 20 years ago. I could do that. I could do that too.
I found a way to make my screen unfreeze.
Nice. So I go back even.
I just need to move my mouse.
Oh, is that it? Oh,
I think. I don't know. I just moved my mouse and it did it.
Very cool. So we are tech guys. We can do this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was back 20 years ago before reptiles, and even before that, I was keeping fish. And I was in a fish club, and this is 35, 40 years ago, believe me, there were political issues then, and people had their own agendas, and, even posting, anything on Facebook, you're going to have back and forth. And it burns me that people have to look at issues like that and not look at this as a community. We're all trying to do the best for these animals. We're all trying to do the best for these animals. We're all trying to be good people here. Um, we're all trying to help other people as well. I'm going to be different. I have my quirks. I'm going to be different. Hit me with those. Contact me offline. Say, well, you're just full of crap on that topic. But, the whole thing right now is it's easy to go online. And my good friend Gary Orner said, there's a lot of keyboard warriors nowadays. People that kind of stand behind the keyboard and just push stuff through. And that's a shame, really. But there's a lot of good people here, too. There's a lot of good people in the Leopard Gecko community. Gary Orner's great people. There's great people in the Crested Gecko community as well. I think it's really super important for new people to find the good people that will answer your questions and not make you feel like you don't know anything at all and you're wasting their time. Find those people that will answer your questions and stick with them. I'm not saying the Facebook groups can be bad, but they can be toxic at times. You have to adjust your level of acceptance, and if it means that you're getting burnt out over that you're feeling bad about that, leave. Find some breeders that you can work with.
Yeah, I just want to caveat to that real quick. Everyone, every breeder and everyone has the right. No, mine is not showing. It keeps freezing. But actually, it was frozen on the Black Knight. I should have just left it. But I just want to encourage any breeders out there right now. One of the things that's really, really beneficial about the ball python community is they collaborate a lot together and they create a lot of fresh content on YouTube, Instagram, even Facebook. And so that's something that I would like to see improvements on for the Leopard Gecko community in general. And I don't know how you feel about the Crested Gecko community, but I know the Leopard Gecko community needs more live streams. It needs more collaborations. It needs more content on the internet that is fresh, right? There's content on the internet, but it's decades old, years old. Like, I really like having live streams like this because people can hop in, ask questions, be a part of a live interactive community today. And so that's just my encouragement to the Leopard Gecko community as a whole, just from my stance being someone who's kind of more focused on the Leopard Gecko side than the Crested Gecko side.
I couldn't have said any differently. He's going to get away from me. By the way, this is poppy seed with all the poppy.
Handleability. You lose handleability. They jump.
So I just didn't want him to jump, and then I'm going to be scrambling for 10 minutes away from the camera.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I completely agree with you. Find the good people and work with the good people, and just don't get bothered by the people that kind of want to bring you down or bring the community down. There's enough good people out there to find somebody to really work with.
Maybe we do a tie for this one. We call it a truce to a tie.
I think so. And I want to stress this over and over again that, this is a fun back and forth, and I'm just getting a kick out of this. I'm really enjoying it. But also important is that we're trying to share some information here, and we're trying to bring up some really important key points, and hopefully that comes through in a little bit of the entertainment value that this live chat has as well.
Yes. 2 comments before we move on.
Thanks.
Erica says, new Crested Gecko owner here. What's the best way to get my Cresty out of his enclosure without scaring him? If you could touch on that real quick.
Take your time. Take your time. The worst thing that you can do with a Crested Gecko is it's a little bit different than Leopard Geckos in that Crested Geckos, if you go in and if you try to get them out of the enclosure, hopefully you can see this. If you try to get them out of the enclosure, you could freak them out and they could drop their tail. I don't have many that have dropped tails, that don't have their tails anymore, but what you want to do is go into the enclosure and just touch them. Just touch them. Hey, something's going on. I'm not here to do any harm. I'm not here to eat you. I'm just here. Don't mind the big person that's touching you. And then just slowly kind of go underneath. And Poppy Seed knows what's going on, so he's going to let me do this. But go underneath and just pull them up. And I tell you, if they start freaking out and jumping around, let them go. Let them go back in the enclosure and deal with it tomorrow.
Good advice. And just real quick, Frank the Tank makes a comment. Leopards are bad at holding on, which he's right, and cresteds are good at it, which he's right. Sometimes too good. Do you ever get crested geckos where it's painful? Like their sticky pads are painful. I have one crested gecko. Her sticky pads are actually painful. It's weird. Like my other cresteds aren't, but hers are like sharp. It's interesting.
They little claws hurt your hands, Frank. They're just kind of grabbing you and hurting your hands. Is that what the problem is?
Okay, okay.
They
So
do. So here's the thing. I'll before this whole last year, one of the selling points for Crested Geckos for me, selling points in a good way to introduce people to Crested Geckos and geckos in general was to be able to hand off a gecko to somebody coming up to the table. Now the problem there is though, handing it off to a 6 or 7 year old, they do feel those little claws a little bit, and they have the reaction of kind of jerking back. And I'm not. Now you and I handle it. Other Crested Gecko keepers handle it. And you don't even really notice it after a while. They do have the little prickly claws, so that is something you have to be aware of.
I didn't even think about that. When I start doing shows like handing reptiles to kids, what I tell people, Wally, what I normally do with little kids, I tell them to get close to the ground before I hand them the gecko, and then I'll like sit with them so that I can kind of see how they're doing it. And as they're kneeling on the ground, which I know is not always possible during a show, but like when they're at my house, it's great because it's a very low drop to the ground, and I can watch them. So
Great comment. Great comment. Absolutely.
what was that? So Community was a wash. I'm just gonna leave
I
it.
think it's a wash. Let's talk
We have
about
goods and bads.
exactly, and whether you're dealing with, and Taylor could certainly add to the comments. Even if you're dealing with fish, if you're dealing with horses or parrots or beanie babies, whatever the case, bigger the
Beanie
community,
Babies.
beanie babies. So the bigger the
Whatever
community,
happened to those?
I don't. I think people.
I used to collect those.
Nanette says that our collection is in the attic, so I'm going up after
Do
the
you
show.
have a gecko? Do you have a reptile, an alligator, or anything like
I
that?
think we had chameleons for sure. So
Oh, nice.
this is a good question for Taylor. In the comments, has she seen the same thing in the bigger fish communities? I just feel like it's going to be anywhere. So I think it's a tie for us with the leopard geckos and the crested geckos for now.
Okay. So
Let's
Community
talk.
is a tie.
Community is a tie. You're frozen, so you need to mark that as a tie on both sides.
I would because I'm like one-handed here. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna not mark it because I have to pull out two different markers and two different colors.
Good enough. Let's talk about handleability here. Look at this, huh? Huh? How about that?
Oh, okay. You're challenging
Okay, let's talk.
handleability.
And he's gone. Let's
Same thing with me. Like I could get it to stay for a second, right?
yeah. Let's talk about morphs and
Photogenic, Wally. Photogenic.
very nice. Oh,
Actually,
me? Oh, you
crested
like the gecko.
crested geckos are so beautiful, like with their eyelashes and stuff. But anyway, okay. So handleability.
Handleability is that's a pretty tough one. That's a pretty tough one. But what we're going to talk about next is morphs and traits because there are very few morphs in crested geckos, and just kind of look at the leopard gecko compared to the crested gecko. Do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
Oh man. So handleability is going to be a tie because I think they both have their pros and cons.
I think so. I think so.
Okay, and then morphs. This is where I think leopard geckos can. I'll just take the reins on it, Wally. This is where I think leopard geckos shine, and this is why I think that leopard gecko. I'm a younger guy stepping into the hobby. I always favored leopard geckos, so maybe I'm biased. But I really thought that there was a lot more momentum around leopard geckos in the early 2000s compared to crested geckos. And whether there was or not, you have more accurate data than I do. But the reason why I think leopard geckos were so popular and continue to be popular, and I believe have the potential to be as popular as ball pythons, but for the entry level lizard community, is because of morphs. People love combinations and creating their own combinations. And I'm going to go to Morph Market real quick, and I'm going to look at how many different morphs are currently listed in leopard geckos. So I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 times 1, 2, 3, 4 categories. So we're going to look at 14 morphs times 4 categories. So you're looking at about 50 something recognized classifications of leopard geckos. Now, some of those are crazy. I don't agree with some of those, but most of them are legit. So what's your 2 cents on morphs? And I'm going to look it up on Morph Market as well for cresteds. Wow, there's actually a lot of line breds for cresteds. Same amount, just about.
I think there are, and that's why I tried to make the distinction between morphs and traits. I mean, crested geckos have a myriad of traits. You know, you can start with the colors, you can start with, and I really think it's the same with leopard geckos, but with crested geckos.
Yeah, can you speak to traits real quick and like line breeding and what the different so-called morphs are of crested geckos?
Absolutely. So a trait, I'm going to talk about morphs and crested geckos in just a second, but traits are things like these Dalmatians. A Dalmatian is a trait on a crested gecko. A flame, the coloration on the dorsal pattern is a trait. The coloring on the sides, the harlequin coloring on the sides is a trait. Large head structure, the crests, that is a trait. So there's dozens and dozens of these traits. And then you take each one of these traits and you combine them. You start combining a large head with Dalmatians. Ooh, that's pretty cool stuff. That's 2 traits combined. But you can take that large head and combine it with all the other traits, basically. You can throw in there pinstriping, which is the lines down the dorsal. That's another trait. So now you can have pinstripe, Dalmatian, red stripe. It just goes on and on. It's hard to even think about a number of all these different traits because there's so many combinations. Now, the cool thing about crested geckos is that, okay, I'm going to use my old man story card again, but when I got into the hobby 20 years ago, I started keeping cresteds. After the first leopard gecko that I kept, I jumped into crested geckos. They were so much fun. I loved both of them, obviously, but somebody in Madison was selling a group, 3 groups actually, of crested geckos. And she was saying, you know, the market is flooded, it's saturated, they're dropping in price. And I saw not that so much as the unlimited possibilities with some of these morphs. And ultimately, my biggest thing was trying to get the red harlequin, you know, the full red animal with the
beautiful
white. What I felt was, you know, the top of the line. And the cool thing, just like leopard geckos, is that everybody has a different opinion of what the top of the top really is. But for me, it was red harlequin. And it took a couple of years to get that right combination. But then I was striving for more harlequin, more white, whiter white, white on the, you know, so getting a better and better, just like in leopard geckos with the morphs and the line, especially the line breeding, like the tangerines and the red stripes and things like that. I really think that what we're talking about is kind of a draw here. I appreciate the fact that some of these leopard gecko morphs are pretty cool. I think the same thing is there for crested geckos. And I actually think that, and I did a video on this a few months ago, saying that I was, and if any of the Supreme Gecko fans remembers this, I said I was quitting leopard geckos, and I'm down to probably 4 or 5 pair. I really narrowed it down because there were so many morphs. I got tired of, the problem with all the morphs right now is that you don't really know for sure what you have. I'm going to mention his name again because I think he's doing great things in the leopard gecko community. Gary Orner, Miles Schwartz, there's some people that are taking this all the way back, get rid of all the genes, get rid of all the different things, and start from scratch. And it takes years to get back, and then years again move forward so that you know exactly when you get a leopard gecko. Is it tremper? Is it rainwater? Is it bell? I don't know. I've got to breed it out. What do you mean I paid $1,000 for this? It was supposed to be a bell, and it has tremper in it. What the heck is that? Same thing can happen with cresteds, but for me, in my mind, I got tired of so many morphs and all the different tangerines. I couldn't keep. I give up. Too many. Too many. I fail. So I used to keep, and here was my analogy. I used to keep baseball cards. It was cool when there were 13 or 14 different brands. Upper Deck, oh my gosh, Ken Griffey Jr. But then there were 40 brands, and then there were 140 brands, and then there were, three times that with all the special. And I just said, with baseball cards, I said, enough, I'm done. Too much to keep up with. And I kind of did that, a few years ago with the Leopard Geckos too. Just too, I felt, in my mind, in my opinion, I felt there were just too many.
So I'm going to see if we can get some people to comment in the chat
Excellent.
on this specific topic while I touch on it real quick. So, you kind of touched on the, if you want to consider what a morph is, there's line-bred traits, which is what Wally was talking about. And I'll talk about morphs, which require Punnett squares and like odds and calculations of genetics. I think because leopard geckos have the ability to combine different genetic odds and probabilities in that dominant, incomplete dominant, dominant, recessive way, I'm going to actually say that I have to vote that leopard geckos beat crested geckos in that way because of the morph factor. We have, in leopard geckos, we have line breeding. We could do a bunch of line breeding, Wally. But if we want, we can also do dominance, recessive, incomplete dominance. We can also do genetic stuff. So I want to see what the chat has to say. The first couple responses will take the check mark. So we can I guess we can move on to the next topic. But chat, hit up the chat with your vote on what morphs are better. Who takes the morph category for leopard geckos or crested geckos? Otherwise, it's going to be a tie because Wally votes crested and I vote leopard. So,
and I'll throw a wrench into that whole thing. And now with crested geckos moving into, into true morphs with the lily white and the melanistic, I think that's opening the door for more and more. We go back years and years ago, and we didn't see any morphs in leopard geckos. We saw some line breeding, but we didn't see any morphs. It was just, random genetics that we started seeing some of these morphs come out. And I think we're just now seeing some of the same thing in crested geckos. I'm going to lose them. This one is going to jump on the floor. So
we're getting good results, Wally. Nate says Leos. Barb says Leos. Jim says Leos. Frank says Leos. Adu. That can't be. Oh no, I was thinking of AE, the Crested Gecko guy. But no, AW says Cresty. Mortal Slayer says he's a Crested Gecko guy, but he believes that Leos win the morph category. And then Toilet Pete Leos. I think we got a clear decision on the morphs category, Wally.
I would have said just the opposite. I would have said crested geckos by far, but I think that Barb kind of went the opposite way. I was holding faith that she would, veer to the crested gecko side, but I think I lost Barb. So
you lost her. Appreciate that, Barb. Appreciate that. Hey, we needed that win too, Wally. You had 2, and now we have 2. So it's 2-2 so far. 2-2.
Oh my gosh. That I think that was closer than you thought, isn't it?
Oh, dude, that was. And when you started mentioning about the recessive Exantic and the recessive Lily White, yeah, you guys are getting some morphs now. But I think that leopard geckos, we have the snow, we have the white and yellow, we have 3 different kinds of albino. We got so much fun stuff. Yeah. So many different. Hey, Wally, so many different combinations for the young brain to work out those mathematical.
This is true, and they can pick whichever path that they want, which is really cool. Somebody wants.
Well, we went with the fans, and we wrote that down. So Nate says, "Can I see the whiteboard chart?" Let's. Wally, did your wife want to come on at all? My wife.
You want to say
wants
hi?
to.
Are you busy? Do you want to say hi?
No, she doesn't have to. I was just wondering because Whitney
Oh,
just walked in the door too. But so, guys, take a Snapchat of it. You've seen it here. We are tied right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories in. Nanette, do you have to vote Crested or Leopard? I want to hear your vote. What your vote would be?
which is the best?
Crested.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even finish. Man.
Well, actually, I should ask my wife. My wife takes care of our Crested Geckos mainly. So, what would you vote? Leopard Gecko or Crested Gecko? Your favorite? Oh no, she said Crested Gecko. She's being controversial. She's being controversial. I didn't hear that, hon. I didn't hear that.
Man.
Sorry, I got my earbuds in. Man, thrown under the bus.
You're back
Thrown under the bus.
back, man. That's
Wait, what did you say? Oh, she said I can't hide from the truth. Oh man, she's trying to stick it to me. She's trying to stick it to. That's not even cool. Not even cool.
I think
Okay, so what?
I think that deserves for me a real quick high five to Whitney, your wife. That was really cool.
Wally gives you a high five. She laughs. She laughs at me. That's the support I get right now. So okay, 6 categories, 2-2.
Oh, we're running pretty close on time here. Let's do investment. So
Okay.
what this means is if I'm getting into, I think we're taking it kind of on a business, and we've gone down the path of kind of ease of care and the basic stuff. Now we're getting into the really heavy duty hitter here, and this is more business, but it is part of keeping these geckos. I think what you meant, Frank, is that the investment, if you're going to invest $1,000 in one of these 2 different types of animals, which one are you going to maybe get your bigger bang for your buck?
Yeah, absolutely. Along with, all right, my wife's coming now to. She's coming to. You might have to sit behind me, hon, because the way the camera is. Wait, Wally, you have an ability to change the camera, right? To like make it wider or like do a different screen style.
See if I can do that.
Yeah, like that. That's pretty good right there. And maybe I won't lag out this time. So we got the wives here. Look, Geeky Geckos represent. Geeky Geckos. So, hon, you still think Crested Geckos? That's your vote? Crested Geckos?
I just think they're cooler. They're able to like jump, and
They're able to jump.
They're just like softer and smoother.
What have you been bitten more by, leopard geckos or crested geckos?
I've been bitten more by leopard geckos.
No. All right, that's not helping any. That is
Any
not
more
helping.
Wally, I'm throw another one
Any
up.
more questions?
You can't hide from the truth.
You can't hide for the truth, she says.
Let's see if I can.
All right, so where were we, Wally? Where were we? Oh no, not the cool jumping effect.
He's going to do the Superman landing. Here it comes.
Oh man.
Oh, what a fail! Talk about handleability.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Talk about handleability. So handleable, it won't come off your hand.
I won that with the Crested Geckos, right?
Which one? Which one?
Nothing. I'm just joking.
Oh, so handleability, yeah. Investment.
Investment. I think this is
and
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, as far as investment, I was speaking about a business side because there are people that are attempting to do this full time. I'm very grateful that because of financial capital, and because of how popular this hobby is, I'm able to at least for now focus on it full time and do what I love full time. So it's not that I'm in it for the money. I'm in it for the passion, number one, but there definitely is business behind it and a business mindset to go with as well. So speaking about return on investment, I wanted to look at Morph Market again. And I can't tell on Morph Market dollar for dollar which has sold more dollars, but gecko for gecko, just using Morph Market, I know there's Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and other places to sell, Craigslist, but just looking at Morph Market, I just wanted to see what has sold more over the last 4 years, Crested Geckos or Leopard Geckos, just to kind of give an idea of who's buying more of what on Morph Market. So, oh, and it's close, bro. It is close. So as far as sold is concerned, just sold, there's been 15,000 Crested Geckos sold in the last 4 years. And comparatively, 17,000 Leopard Geckos sold in the last 4 years. So they're kind of balancing out there. That's just within the last 4 years because Morph Market is fairly new. It's only 4 to 5 years old, depending on whether you're talking about ball pythons or leopard geckos. Now, here's a fun fact, Wally. This is why I say the leopard gecko community and Crested Gecko. Well, I don't know about Crested Gecko, but the leopard gecko community is going to benefit from content. Ball python breeders are producing thousands of videos every month of content. And it shows on Morph Market, 160,000 ball pythons sold in the last 4 years, just on Morph Market. 17,000 leopard geckos versus 160,000 ball pythons sold in the same amount of time. That shows you how content creates awareness, and awareness drives the hobby higher. So that's why I really want to encourage leopard gecko breeders to create more content, more live streaming, and get on the platform where the young people are. That's why I really give you and Luna Geckos credit, because you're a couple OGs in the hobby that are bringing it to the millennials and making your knowledge accessible to the new platforms for the youth. So
Big G in the house.
Big G, man. I got Big G. That's my boy right there. He's so tech savvy. He knows how to do some tech stuff better than me, and I'm like jealous of him. So Anyway, for what that's worth. But
yeah, I guess millennials put tape on their faces.
Oh, Whitney says millennials put tape on their faces, but this is a what is it? What's before millennial? Whatever that was, the 90s or whatever.
Hey, this is a stretch for me. I'm telling you right now, for me to do this, and I can't even do it right. I'm on just all backwards.
The backwards hat. Yeah. It makes us more intimidating with the hat. Yeah. Wally, what if you rock it to the side? You know,
a little side. I look like rascals, don't I?
Yeah, for sure. Your wives are just laughing.
Okay,
okay.
So you brought up some Morph Market numbers. Let me kind of express from my experience personally for Supreme Gecko. I have listed all kinds of different animals on there, from really fairly rare geckos to leopard geckos to I don't think I've listed any crested geckos on there yet. The reason I'm not listing crested geckos on Morph Market is I go to a show and I put 50 animals, leopard geckos on the table, and I put 50 crested geckos. And this isn't the last show. This isn't, an average of this last year's show. This is an average of, 15 years, 20 years, maybe let's say 15 years. Let's say 15 years. Over 15 years, the average is that I'm going to sell 3 crested geckos for every, it's way more than that. It's probably 10 crested geckos for every 1 leopard gecko. Now, there's certain shows that I have friends that bring leopard geckos, but I also have friends bringing crested geckos to these shows too. So I don't throw anything on Morph Market because I don't have the opportunity to do that because I already have a wish list of people wanting crested geckos, and I already have the availability of these reptile shows where I can bring a crested gecko, and it's gone. It's literally gone. By the end of the season, I am not even before the end of the season. I am out of crested geckos. I don't care if I breed 200 or 800. I will be out of crested geckos by the end of the year. Whereas with leopard geckos, I have bred up to 400 or 500 in a year, and I'll tell you, I'm going into the next season and getting more babies and still having some from the previous season. So I'm looking for sales sources to get some of those leopard geckos in hands of new owners, and Morph Market would be one of my places where I would throw leopard geckos so I could move them a little bit quicker. So I think those Morph Market numbers might be a little bit biased toward that. I'll use my personal, and again, this is just me, and different parts of the country are different, but our dog's coming through. For me, it's so much easier to sell a crested gecko than it is a leopard gecko. So we're talking about low end. I'm also talking about high end. I can put a $500 crested gecko, $800 crested gecko on the table, and if it's a red Harley or a full pinner or something like that, I know it will be sold. If it's not sold, I'm going to put it on my page, my store page, and list it there. And within a month or two, it'll be sold for sure. I can't. When I was heavy into the leopard geckos, I can't say the same thing for the leopard geckos. I think that different markets are moving different ways. But having said that, I think that leopard geckos are coming back up. They were really down for about 3 or 4 or 5 years there. They're coming back, but I don't see any dip in crust. I haven't seen any dip in crested geckos, and I think that now with some of these new morphs, I think that it's bringing more and more interest to the crested gecko community. And I think from an investment standpoint, if you want to buy a pair of leopard geckos or a pair of crested geckos, if you want to kind of drive your business end of things, it's not all about money, but if that's your goal, I think if I were to give the advice, and I try not to get into business with people or prices or anything like that because everybody's different, but I would suggest to somebody buy a couple, 3 breeder pairs of crested geckos and work the different lines and do a couple of reptile shows and build a page, a Shopify or something like that, and you'll be able to sell those crested geckos.
Good input, Wally. Good input. And I don't really have enough. We are in the growth phase of our company right now. So we're holding back a bunch of babies this year so that we can have 1,000 babies next year. But actually, let me touch on that real quick. As far as return on investment, it also deals with breedability, when the gecko is able to bring that investment back to you. So for leopard geckos, they are able to breed within 8 to 10 months, and then they bring anywhere between 6 to 10 eggs. So can you speak about crested geckos and when they're able to breed and how many eggs they'll bring on average?
Yeah, we usually wait at least 1.5 years to get the females super healthy. But I tell you, after that first initial 1.5 years, we have constantly breeding going on in our facility, other than the winter months, obviously. But we're getting anywhere from a dozen eggs to 2 dozen eggs for every female. 2 dozen is a lot,
2
but
dozen?
yeah, we're generally 18 to 20 eggs is pretty normal.
I did notice my crested gecko the first year, 16 eggs, no problem. And I was like, what? Leopard geckos are about half that. You're looking at probably 6 to 8 on average. 2 completely different species. As far as what you're saying, investment wise, just from a financial perspective, the numbers and the breeders and the attractability, because like you said, crested geckos are definitely, there's more tables at a show for crested geckos than leopard geckos right now, and that's saying something in the market. So as much as I hate to say so, I would say right now crested geckos could be the better investment if you're looking for a business and financial gain. Now, caveat, the best investment is always what you enjoy the most, which is why I invest in leopard geckos, because I enjoy leopard geckos the most. Don't get me wrong, I love crested geckos. I have some here, but I enjoy leopard geckos the most, so I'm going to promote that and see what happens with it. But I would imagine you would say the same thing, Wally.
I'm glad you brought that up. I wish I would have said that because I feel like I would have forgotten it. You are absolutely right on the spot with that. If you're doing this, we did bearded dragons. We were selling them left and right.
Your wife did not like that.
We were doing chameleons, and we were selling them left and right. I got out of chameleons because I was just tired of seeing the females lay for a season and then not be here for the next season. I couldn't emotionally handle something like that. For bearded dragons, I didn't have any fun with bearded dragons. They were little, breed, sell the babies, money. Every show that we would do, 25, 30, 40% of our income from that show would be bearded dragons. But I didn't have any interest in that whatsoever. It was a kid's project. They got girlfriends. They were on to something else. So the year after we were really super heavy into bearded dragons, I sold them all. Found some friends that wanted them and moved on. Do this for your passion. Do it for your passion. Thank you, Frank, for bringing that up. If you don't do it for your passion, it doesn't matter you're going to be making here. You're going to be out of it in a couple of years because you're going to get tired of the work. There's a lot of work. I think I calculated last year I made 72 cents an hour for my work. It's
Whitney's
crazy.
laughing. She gets it.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You're not doing it for. I hope people aren't doing this for the money because it's the wrong path. Good point.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, just to touch on that, it's not like you could produce geckos and they're automatically going to sell. It takes a lot of marketing. It takes a lot of social media. It takes a lot of promoting. And I'm really facing that for the first time, heading into this year. So I have yet to really fully understand that. But this much I can tell you, to experience that, but I know that it's not easy. But this much I can tell you is, like you were mentioning, it takes a lot of work. If you go large scale, right? If you're just a hobbyist and you got a few, that's okay. But to cover the spread and to cover expenses, if you're doing this full time, you're going to be working till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning most nights. And Whitney knows that. She goes to bed. I go into bed like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and then wake up the next day, 9 o'clock in the morning and do it all over again. 9 to 3 in the morning, that is,
So, Whitney, do you ever get tired of him going to bed and saying, okay,
yes,
remember now, we have to change this around and we have to move these animals, and if I just did this,
Nanette.
are you
She's nodding in agreement.
How about you?
Whitney's always telling me, just come to bed, and I'm like, hon, I got like 2 to 3 hours more work to do,
When I'm tired, I go to bed. I sleep like a rock. I don't even notice him coming in. I'm just out.
Yeah.
I know that will change when we start having kids, but
we just have reptile babies for now.
oh man.
She's
Yeah.
Bob says Wally doesn't sleep.
She's like, I'm out of here, man. I'm done. 10:30.
Yeah.
10:30. I'm off the clock.
I tell him, I'm like, I'm going to bed. So turn the hallway light off. Put your headphones in.
See ya. Yeah, I gotta be quiet when she goes to bed, and that's when I'm like cleaning or breeding, and I want to be like blasting music while I'm doing that, but I gotta put my headphones in, and so.
When I'm done with all the reptiles and everything, I go to bed and I watch videos. I watch.
Same. I get stuck.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I fall asleep and I'm now watching TikTok videos or something about cheerleaders or something.
It's crazy, man. So the social media wave is insane.
Yes.
So what category was that? Investment. So I don't know. I guess because it's a labor of love, right? Because it's a labor of passion. I don't know if one is better than the other, but what's your thoughts on that?
Again, and this is me. This is Supreme Gecko. This is me. It never was a passion thing. I always loved both animals. I just couldn't keep up with the leopard geckos anymore, and it was so much. So after a while, you narrow. What I did was I narrowed down my scope to just the animals that I really, 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 really wanted to work with, because anything past that was a business. So, and I knew from a business, so I've got these certain number of breeders. This is passion. These are the business, and that list is pretty large. Then I've got crusteds that are really working on different, color forms, different lines, trying to improve them. And then, I'm keeping these others because I can sell the crested geckos. After a while, I got rid of a lot of leopards because from a business standpoint, it was harder to sell them, So from my standpoint, it was always, always, always easier and a better investment for me to buy a male and female crested gecko than a male and a female leopard gecko. It always was. It was, 18, 20 years ago, and it certainly is today for me.
Can I ask you a little bit of a personal question, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a two-part question.
Yep.
Do you wholesale, number one, if you need to? And number two, which gecko sells more wholesale, crested or leopard?
Yeah. I would sell wholesale the leopard geckos. There were, times where I was putting together 20 and 50 packs and I was wholesaling. I know some friends that also wholesale leopard geckos. I don't know. I've never wholesaled crested geckos, and I don't want to sound egotistical or any boastful or anything. I've just never needed to put together packages of crested geckos. I've never put together. Here's a 10-pack, and I've just not needed to do that. And I don't know if I know any breeders that are doing that either. I think there's some big breeders. I know of one big breeder, a couple of big breeders that are putting together because they have huge facilities and they have other ventures and they need to do that. But I've never done that from a wholesale standpoint for cresteds. I have done it from a leopard gecko standpoint.
Yeah, retail gives you a little more personability with the person that's actually receiving the animal. You're able to stay in communication with them, kind of know who they are, and know where the animal's going. So I do like that aspect as well. But like you said, if you get caught in a jam where you got like 300 animals to get rid of and they're just not selling retail, I know there's a lot of people that do the wholesale. It's just part of staying afloat. And, my first gecko came from a pet store which bought that wholesale, right? So when you do wholesale, that gecko's going to go to some kid for the first time anyway. And although it's harder to track who's getting that gecko and whether they're taking the best care of it, as long as you trust the wholesaler that you're selling to and you're like okay with that wholesaler, it can still make its way to a good home. I was just curious, maybe value-wise, what they went for, but
yep, absolutely.
So that's investment. What are you voting? Are you voting crested then for investment?
Yeah, hands down, I'm voting crested geckos. And again, this comes from experience from working with both of them.
I'll give you that category because you've actually worked with both and have sold both. So I don't really have a stance, that I can speak from there.
I'm curious now. What do our viewers say about the thought of investment for either crested or leopard geckos?
Yeah, let's see I'll write down the next category and then we'll look at what their response is because they're like a few seconds behind. But what do you guys think about return on investment, initial expense, daily expense, monthly expense, and your return on that investment financially from leopard geckos versus crested geckos? Which one do you think is better? Leave it in the comments and we'll come back to it. Maybe leopard gecko will get a check mark and we will nullify that category. But do you have any more categories, Wally?
I'm out of categories. I think that we've covered everything. You gave some great categories. I didn't have anything additional to that. I think we're good here, Frank. I think we've covered quite a bit here.
Okay. Well, if you got the time for it, 5 more minutes, one more category, Wally.
Let's do it.
The superhero category. If a leopard gecko had superpowers like Superman and a crested gecko had superpowers like, I can't compare it to Batman because Batman doesn't really have superpowers. He just has like traits, human ability traits, right? He doesn't have mutations like Superman does. But
Batman has a cape.
He has a cape, powerful cape, right? So, okay, let's pull out the geckos. If the geckos had, oh man, so for sure he did it right there. Crested geckos would have the ability to, they're like Spider-Man, right?
No. They're like Superman. They have the ability to leave buildings in a single bound, and it's gone.
So they could leave buildings in a single bound and then crash. That's their kryptonite. Leopard geckos have sharp teeth and more of a hunter's aspect. So they do have slashers and daggers and claws.
Anybody in the chat that knows Monty Pythons? Because I think what Frank is saying is they have real sharp teeth in they're like Monty Python's Holy Grail. Is that what you're saying? They're just sharp teeth.
Bigger jaws, more jaw power.
Right.
Let's see. What other attributes do they have? Oh, leopard geckos have the ability to. Props up Batman as money we got in the chat. Okay, but for real though, survivability, leopard geckos store that fat in their tail, and in a pinch, they can literally go half a year without food, like legitimately if they needed to. So pretty good superpower right there. Survivability.
I know I voted for Crested Geckos, but actually, we were listening to a church service on Sunday, and our pastor said that if you compare Superman and Batman, Superman was like given all of his like supernatural powers, but Batman like had to work at it. So maybe leopard geckos have to like work extra hard, and maybe they're
we don't have
fighters.
jumpy, springy frog legs like the Crested Geckos do.
What a great analogy. So pretty much what you're saying is Superman came to this planet where there were like 4-year-olds. So he's really in a world of 4-year-olds.
He's bullying a world of 4-year-olds.
Powers against you 4-year-olds. What a great analogy.
Yeah. All right, let's see the comments. Let's see. Batman killed Superman? ? Andrew saying Batman killed Superman. My daughter and I love our Crested Gecko. Crested is a better investment. But Batman has money. Luna, here we go. OG Luna. I love both, but leopard geckos' speed to breed and space needs might give the win on investment. Ooh, we build longer, not taller. Well, actually, leopard gecko racks build tall too.
That's
leopard geckos.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Big G said about the breeding side. We breed in 15 quarts. It takes 2 15 quarts, but that's still a male and a female. We're using 20 extra highs for our pairs of crested geckos, and that takes up more space. That's a good point.
So, by the way, we use 12 quarts, Wally.
Okay.
But, well, I'm just saying that because you're 24, so we need less space. Except, we have to keep males and females separate. Unlike crested geckos, you can actually keep them in groups, right? For the most part, I know different gecko breeds do different things, but we actually like to keep our geckos separate, so that does take up a decent amount of space. Now you have more reps, even though we're shorter.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if you have any last remarks, but Frank the Tank has a pretty cool kind of ending slogan.
Oh, no, we're not going to leave it on Frank the Tank as a last comment, are we?
He came up with Okay, wait, no. Bob came up with the ultimate last saying, but let's go with Frank the Tank first. Frank the Tank said that for leopard geckos have tail slam as their power move. Okay. And crested geckos have jumping and swinging abilities. So we could whack you and bite you, but you could jump and swing around us and whatnot. That's what Frank is saying, basically.
Okay, now I'm going to go back to the movie Aliens, and you remember when that alien went on the face and stuck there? Went on the face and stuck there? That's a crested gecko, man. That's right.
Touche. Yeah. That movie was freaky. It's actually, a side note, that is my favorite movie series of all time. It's the first movie series we watched in college when we first started dating.
Oh, very cool.
Aliens. Yeah.
Good movie.
So Bob says, here's their superpower. They both have the power to bring smiles to people's faces.
Oh,
isn't that great? Oh no! Wait, Contagious dropped the mic. Leos have the ability to regenerate their tails. Ooh, that's big mic drop right there. Regeneration.
I mean, that's cool, but it's like a little creepy too.
Oh, come on, it's regeneration.
Here you go. Here's a leopard gecko with a regenerated tail. This is a leopard gecko.
Here's a leopard gecko.
It looks like. Come on.
Hey, would you rather have a regenerated tail or a frog butt? You know what I'm saying?
His tail.
Look at his tail. Okay, I'm just saying, scientists are studying the regenerative powers of leopard geckos for humans. Just saying. Just saying.
haven't you ever seen the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield? You know how that went. Those regenerative mad scientists did not make it go very well.
Oh, there you go.
Oh man, well, Contagious, I thought you had a mic drop moment right there. We're not getting a lot of support from the rest of the crew here, but so what do you think? Ultimate, yeah.
I'm going to say what I think, and go ahead and say what you think. Let's get the fans also, the viewers, to say what they think. Either just write it down, Crested or Leo. Let's get a count here. And
final count, Crested or Leo.
Final count from our fans. But I think for me, it's got to be Crested Geckos. And again, I go back to my I don't want to say experience, but just my working with both species. I just so much enjoy Crested Geckos more. From a business standpoint, it drives our business. It drives our business, and it always has, and it always will. But I tell you what, here's my ultimate selling point. I have somebody walk up to the table. I open a container with a leopard gecko, and they squeal, which is really cool. And it's kind of hard for kids to hold a leopard gecko. I open up a Crested Gecko container, and I do the hand jump superhero landing, and I get all the eyes. I get moms and dads that have taken that full step back. Ooh, it's I don't want to. Ooh, and by the time their kids are holding it, they're right up with their kids, looking at these Crested Geckos and like, yeah, maybe this would be a good first pet for our family.
Great point. Great point. And again, I'm on the opposite side because I love the mutations of leopard geckos and the creation, the ability of creation, how fast you can breed them. You could literally take a baby, and I kid you not, within 6 to 8 months, depending on the size of that gecko, it could be up to breeding size. It can breed and do fine. So as far as creative ability and creative contrast and color, and just the overall fact that they walk from one hand to the other instead of jump on your face like a face hanger, clinger. I'm going to go with leopard geckos. But we are getting a lot of feedback in the chat for Cresteds.
Okay.
Erica says Crested, Brian Crested, Mortal Crested, Barb Crested, Luna, I'm with Wally just because us old guys have to stick together. Crested, Frank the Tank, Leos are better in terms of care, but Cresteds are a good eye catcher. And Jim, laugh out loud. I gotta get Frank's back, Leos. Thanks.
So, does it ultimately? It sounds like it's kind of almost working to be a tie here. Maybe we need to get two people that have been kind of part of this conversation. Let's ask maybe the experts and the people who really know the stuff. Whitney, what do you think? Leopard or Crested?
Overall vote, which was better?
You know, I always say, like, I know I'm married and I love my husband, but I have to go with the truth.
What? Do you really think that that's the truth?
I have to go with Crested.
I did not know this. This is the first time this is coming out to me, by the way. I totally would have thought you would have went Leos. We're cleaning Leos more, all the time and breeding Leos and the little babies. I'm shocked right now, guys. I feel like I should just roll up and die.
Well, he knew this about me when he married me, that I'm very blunt. And
she is very blunt.
I say what's on my mind.
I did know that about her, and I did respect that about her when we first started dating. She's not afraid to tackle the political issues, the controversial issues, and say what she thinks, and she's on the side for righteousness and justice, and I'm not making this any better for myself. But Leopard Geckos.
So admit, Frank, that you're wiser for marrying somebody so wise.
Yes, marry someone that has qualities and traits that I do not possess so that we can be stronger together.
A person and a wiser person, too. So, Nanette, it's Crested.
Oh, man, no hesitation at all. No. I knew that was coming.
I think it was a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I hope that everybody came away from this. I don't know if did anybody change their mind? Comment in the comments real quick here. We're in our last minute. Did this conversation change anybody's mind whatsoever? I think it was a great conversation. I learned a little bit.
That's a good question, yeah.
Yeah. and hopefully everybody that listened at least was entertained a little bit, especially with that leopard gecko tail kind of thing. But
Ooh, look, a new arm.
I hope you at least, got something out of this conversation.
Yes.
Any
I'm
comments?
going to thank everybody in the chat. And so when do we get to watch you guys fight, Frank says.
Erica might find like
Leo.
Wait, Wally, do the what's that boxer thing from the 70s when you were what? A kid? Yeah. You know how old those are? They don't even have them. They don't even have those anymore. I saw that as like a historical archive in like my aunt's basement one time.
And he's eating you. Yeah, their arms just kind of move like this, and then once in a while, and you'd have to go
push its head back into place.
This has been great, Frank. I really appreciate it. This was kind of last second almost for you. I really appreciate you coming in here. This has been a blast. We've got to do this more often. We really do.
We do. Fun topics like this. If anything, just to see you boxing me out on the thumbnail is worth it. Dude, that thumbnail, you look like a biker from, I don't know, some show or something like that. Like, I was freaked out.
Narcos or something.
Yeah, Narcos or something with the handlebar mustache. I was like, man.
That's what I did in my previous life.
That's what I did. That's how you got the money for geckos.
That's right. Don't mess with me, boy.
Thank you so much as well. Yeah, there it is. Really fun, though. We will do more stuff like this. Maybe we'll come up and we'll have you on our channel soon and do like another fun kind of interactive thing too. So
that would be a blast. Thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate you watching. Night all.
Appreciate it, guys. Good night.
Bye bye.
Thank you, guys.